Well, hey there, pen fans. Brian Goulet here from gouletpens.com, and I'm here for episode number 309 of Goulet Q&A, where fountain pens are still a thing. Looking at the video, looks like my face is still really red. I apparently am getting a lot of sun outdoors and not wearing enough sunscreen. So wear your sunscreen, everybody. Otherwise, you'll look pinkish like me. All right, let's see here. What do we got going on today? I'm going to be talking about how you pack up your ink for a 1,000-mile move, cartridges that come with the BENU pens, and I showcase the Diamine Forever Permanent inks. So we're going to nerd out a bit on this one. I hope you enjoy it, and we'll start it off with feedback. All right, got some thorough feedback here. Osiris Goulet had some very thorough feedback from me. So it says you don't need to hot glue pilot cartridges. Talking about ink cartridges, you can just remove the little disc that you mentioned a minute earlier and reinsert it into the end of the cartridge. There are cartridge plugs as well. I've seen them sold at a Dutch store and perhaps other places. Yeah, I don't know if the cartridge plugs thing is like something that's being like mass produced. I think that's maybe more of a niche thing because I don't know anyone who has them other than like somebody's like 3D printed them or something like that. So, that could be interesting, but it makes more sense. Like in Europe, it's a much more cartridge centric writing environment than it is here in the US. Though people do use cartridges, but it's mostly bottles. Anyway, so that's kind of cool. Yeah, and you can definitely do the disc on the pilot thing. I was more testing the pilot one just to see how big of an opening that hot glue could work on. And, if you don't feel like fussing around with that disc, that's totally fine. I think I might lean more on the hot glue. I don't know. It's interesting, but it's cool you can do that. All right, Osiris had another one. This is a long one, so hang in there with me. Regarding question 2 from 308, I would like to make the following comment. Basically, I can and must recommend 4 specific materials. Talking about pens that would be good for hospital settings and using sterilization techniques on the pen on a regular basis. All right, so stainless steel, 304, 307, 316L, etc. Type 316L stainless steel, also called surgical stainless steel, in particular, is very well suited for use in clinical environments where a lot of sanitation work is carried out. I would agree with you. I don't know any fountain pen manufacturer that uses that specific stainless steel. Then again, I don't know what specific stainless steel any of them use who make stainless steel pens. So that would be interesting, but I would imagine the surgical stainless steel is more expensive and then probably not being used for pens because it's not required. So, but it'd be interesting. PEEK, P-E-E-K. This material developed in Germany is primarily used for heat insulation. Its other special advantages include resistance to chemicals, acids, and alcohols. Fountain pens made of this material are offered, for example, by the Korean manufacturer Eureka. I do not know who that is. Cannot endorse them, but seems, I looked at their website and it seems like a, kind of more independent maker sort of a thing. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of independent makers who are using some really cool materials. So that could be an option. Ultem, this is another one. This material has similar properties to PEEK and can therefore be used in sanitary facilities without any concerns. The only negative to Ultem is upon intensive contact with pure methanol. It's probably not what you're going to be rubbing on your pen to sanitize it. Ultem polyetheramide is a plastic used for fountain pens that's extremely resistant to all the common cleaning agents. So it'd be an excellent material for use in a hospital. You just don't want to soak it in anything because, the other parts of it wouldn't necessarily hold up. So, yep, I agree. And I forgot, we do, well, I didn't really forget. I mean, we do have an Ultem pen, a Shown Design pen. I didn't think of it to answer this specific question because for one, it's a pocket pen with no clip, and I wouldn't think that would necessarily be the ideal thing for a hospital setting. Plus, that pen is, it's pushing $300, and I just wouldn't think that's a pen that you would want to, use in that type of a setting. You could buy a lot of preppies and, sanitize them and then throw them out after a couple of weeks. That'd be more wasteful, of course, but you could go through a lot of preppies before you approach the cost of one of those Ultem pens. So, but that is an option. That is kind of cool. And then titanium, last but not least, probably the best material imaginable for clinical and sanitary environments. Twice stronger than steel and twice lighter. So an overall ratio of 4-to-1. Yeah. Also hyperallergenic, chemical resistant, all that stuff. Yeah, titanium would be good. Not a lot of titanium pens out there, but there are some. So that would be a good option as well. So yeah, there you go. Kind of cool. Thank you. I appreciate the thorough feedback there. Never ceases to amaze me how much more people know than me. All right, let's talk about some new stuff, okay? All right, new stuff. I got a few pens, Nothing super affordable this week. I apologize, but there are some pretty cool things. So you can at least Google at the images if you want. First one I have is Tatcha Empress Magic of Suzumi. We have not seen a ton of stuff coming from Tatcha because they just were really rocked hard with the earthquake that happened last year. So, but their artisans are working and they are doing their best. So we do have a pen called the Magic of Suzumi here. It is only 20 pens worldwide, so it's not a huge number of them. It's a $5,600 MSRP pen. So, but you'll see why as soon as you look at it. It looks absolutely gorgeous. Represents the spirit of Japanese people, and it was used. And the Suzumi Taiko represents the spirit of Japanese people, and it was used in royal courts, festivals, religious ceremonies, and theatrical arts. So, if you're into Japanese history and lore, it's worth a look. It's also just a very pretty pen if you want to see the pictures. And then we have 3 pens coming out from Magna Carta. These are all special editions. These are going to have the number 6 14K flex nibs, the true flex nibs, which are really fantastic. So if you've used any other Magna Carta Mag 600, it's the same nib as on that one. Ebonite feed, so it gets plenty of ink to that flex nib. And what's cool about these pens is they're like an Art Deco style. So if you're into the kind of throwback, a 20s and 30s style, you're going to get some of that. So you get 3 different pens. We got an Art Deco blue. So it's like an engraved pen. Now, it does have some texture to it, that I will say. So it's not going to be for everybody. But it has a really cool light effect. So it's a translucent pen. It's got this cool like Art Deco fan engraved into the outside of the body. And, it's big. You can eyedropper convert it. It's a pretty cool pen. So that's worth a look. And we have the same thing basically in purple as well. So there's a purple and a blue version. And then those are going to be $400. And then we have a different one, a black ebonite chase. So this is not as textured as the Art Deco ones, but it's more of like a guilloche. It's very shallow, but you can feel the texture a tiny bit, but it's not crazy. And then that ebonite's polished. It feels really good and looks very classic, vintage kind of a design. So that's $400 as well. So anyway, go check those out if you're into that vibe, vintage flex, vintage pen style on a pretty good size pen that's not super heavy. So we have those available right now. You can check them out and let's do a company update. All right, I don't have a ton to update. It's been pretty quiet around here. We're just, trying to do our thing every day. But we did get another video out, top green pens. Janaea came back with me on this one. So we did the pink pens for Glinda, and then we did the green pens for Elphaba. So it should be pretty fun. We're just kind of goofing around, having a good time, ranking pens that we like that are green. So if you haven't checked that out, go watch it. Some good, fun pentertainment going on. And speaking of pentertainment, let's get into the questions. All right. I went fewer questions this week because I got a meaty one and then I wanted to leave some time to play with some inks. Starting out with Ann Wagner, 5779. I will probably be moving about 1,000 miles in a couple of months. Boy, you must be going fast. But okay. Do you have advice for packing ink bottles for safe moving? I have my pens in cases, so I hope that will make it easy to move them. Yeah, pens and cases will be fine. That'll be perfectly fine. Bottles, yeah, ink bottles, most of them are glass. And if anybody knows what it is to move glass ink bottles over long distances, it would be a fountain pen retailer like us. So we definitely have done that quite a bit. If you've ever received packages from us, you can see exactly how we do it. There's different ways you can do it. I think, especially like in terms of moving supplies and what's easy for you to get. Bubble wrap is always a good way to go, especially if you can like reuse it or something like that. It's not the best thing for the environment. Paper is generally better, but the problem you have with most paper, like most people just want to like grab some newspaper and wrap it up or whatever. Problem is that stuff is too thin and crumbly. And by the time you're jostling around, a heavy, a bottle of ink, it's not only fragile, but it's pretty dense in terms of its weight. So if you wrap it in paper, as it moves around and shakes, it's going to compress the paper. And then as it frees up, it moves and shakes more. And then before long, the thing is just rattling around inside of there. So that's where paper can not be great for ink. Now, we do use paper for our ink here. And the way that we do that is we have special craft paper. We have a machine that folds it up in a certain way that makes that easier to kind of hold it in there. But also, it's the thickness of the paper as well. So if you use too thin of a paper, it's not going to be as good. And you want to like kind of pre-crumple and pre-crush the paper because the more you crush it, before you put it in there, then the less it's going to get moved around. So if you're going to use paper, use a lot of it and really kind of cram it in there. But bubble wrap is a good way to go. If you like wrap it up in bubble wrap and then like tape it so it's like a big bubble wrap egg, that's the best thing because, some people might think just bubble wrap it around. But then like if the thing gets jostled, it can slide out of the bubble wrap. So you just want to make sure the thing stays in there. No matter how you pack your ink though, especially if it's an ink you've opened up before, I would put it inside like a plastic bag or something like a sandwich bag or something like that. Like wrap each ink individually, just because if there is a leak, you want it to be contained, right? And I don't know where you're moving to or when seasonally. You said in a couple of months, it might be the heat of the summer. It could get pretty hot depending on where you are. So, it's stuff sitting on a moving truck or wherever, you want to protect it. So not a bad idea to wrap those up each one. And then, one thing you could do, I don't know how much ink you have. Certainly I would consider wrapping each ink individually. But one thing I was thinking that would be kind of cool is if you had, I've seen this before. I haven't moved in a long time, but if you have seen the, it's like a box, sort of like a tray with dividers in it. It's all cardboard, but it's made for like dishware, like cups and, glassware and that type of stuff. So it's like there's individual cardboard dividers and then you like wrap up each glass and you put it in. They've got their own little divided kind of container, but it's all in one big box. That would work really well for ink, I would think. Maybe it'd be kind of big. I don't know. Maybe you could probably fit a couple of inks in each one, but basically the less total space there is to move around and get jostled, the safer the ink's going to be in there. So, and then I would provide plenty of padding around the outside edges, just because, you don't know how people are going to handle them. And then I don't know how many bottles of ink you have. I have a considerable number of bottles of ink. What I wouldn't do is pack like an entire box just with ink and make it super heavy, mix in some like pillows and on top of it or something like that, so make it so that it's not this massive heavy box. The heavier the box is overall, the more it's likely to get dropped and the more it's going to damage if it does get dropped. So, just kind of padding it, protecting it, maybe wrap blankets around the whole thing or something. I don't know, but you got options. I think you'll be okay. They'll take a lot of abuse though. So I would not underestimate how much you might need to pack those things. But yeah, it can definitely be done. We do it here every day. So you just got to, give it attention and you'll be fine. All right, next question, different kind of geek. Another cartridge question that ties nicely with blue inks for work question. What brand of ink cartridge comes in the BENU Euphoria? I love the blue. It's dark, but it has shading and even sheen. Can you offer some comparable inks, especially if it's an unknown or a brand Goulet Pens doesn't sell? Well, got good news for you. It is both known and one that we sell. But it is standard international cartridges that come with them. BENU doesn't make their own ink, but they use Diamine Oxford Blue. I don't know if this has always been the case. I don't know if it always will be the case in the future, but I believe that is what they're using on all their pens now. So it's always subject to change. That's why we don't necessarily put it on our website. We usually don't put a lot of information about cartridges on our site because they are something that if a manufacturer needs to change something or whatever, they might change it on the fly and not tell us, and then we're advertising something wrong without knowing it. So I'm telling you all this because that's what it is. That's what I think it's going to be for the foreseeable future. But if you really like that color, you can get more Oxford Blue, of course. Other colors that are similar to that, though, I didn't look off all these are in cartridge form. I know all of these are not necessarily in cartridge form, but I do have a couple other good dark blue inks if you wanted some options that are similar. Diamine 1864 Blue Black is very similar to that. Monteverde Blue Velvet Cake is good. Lamy Cliff and Jacquerbon Bleu de Profondeur is also very good. And I think most of those I used in the Blue Black video that I did a few weeks ago. So if you want to see what they look like, you can see them there, or I think we're going to have pictures over top here. But either way, you got options. So you got bottles of all these, cartridges of some. But either way, now you know what's in there. So glad I could help you out. All right, and then last question I have, this is from MJ Kossel, says, regarding Diamine Forever inks, how are they to clean out of a pen? Have you gotten that far yet? I vastly prefer water-resistant inks, but have concerns about staining and demonstrator pens. I haven't found a good way to test this yet, other than sacrificing a pen to the cause. Yes, that is tough, especially because not every demonstrator pen, not every demonstrator pen is the same. It depends on a few different factors, but mostly like what plastic the pen is made of. So there's a few different factors going on there. And I don't know a good way to test it other than using the pen that you're trying to test, just because that's really the only way to know. So I haven't tested cleaning it out in any of my pens yet. I've mostly swabbed them and sort of played with them with like dip pens and stuff like that. But customer care team has, Adrian in particular, has been very enthusiastic. She's our customer care manager, and she's really gone nuts, has inked them all up. And I have all of her inked up pens right here. So got this nice little, thing here. In fact, I'm going to turn on my overhead so you can see what's going on there. But yeah, so she has cleaned out a couple of pens and said that it cleaned out great. Says also it's really good about not like sticking onto your hands when you clean it. So that seems pretty good. So, it seems like working with the pen, especially when it's like inky, like when it's active, not like completely dried up, is great to clean. What I haven't tested, what I don't know is like if you let the ink dry out completely and like crust up in the pen, how is it to clean that out? Okay. Give me time. I'll get there because I do that with all my pens. But in terms of that, I would just say it's a pigmented ink. So I would assume it's going to require some extra cleaning if you let it dry up to that degree. It doesn't seem like it requires any extra cleaning from any other normal fountain pen ink, for what that's worth. And it seems to perform really well. Adrian's a big fan of these. She's really touting them, and I've been impressed too with how they ink up and how waterproof they are. So that's actually going to segue into our spotlight here in just a minute. But let's get to that in a second. Let's see here. Oh yeah, how to test them. I mentioned there's not necessarily a good way. This is one of the things that like testing an ink for like how easy it is to clean out of a pen. I mean, we can do that on a couple different pens and ones that we're sort of familiar with, but it's really tough to make any type of like general statement about that without crowdsourcing it, like without a bunch of people just kind of using it in different pens, different scenarios, different environments, and then sort of somewhat of a consensus of like, this is easy to clean, this is not. Most things are like, yeah, it falls somewhere in the middle. But it's really tough for us to make some kind of declaration because we don't have like a good scientific way to like really measure that. Unless it's like at the complete extremes of like, this pen is impossible to clean. But from what I've seen so far, they're not problematic inks. They don't stain, any more than a conventional ink might be inclined to. It also might vary on the color too, because a lot of times dyes and stuff like that will have different components that are more likely to stain in certain color ranges, particularly like reds and purples and stuff, and oranges maybe. But we'll take a look at some pens here. We got some eyedropper preppies over here that we'll take a look at in a hot sec. So yeah, preppy eyedroppers, I would say, is one of the best things you can test. Granted, it's one type of plastic. It's not every pen is going to be made out of that exact plastic, but it's a pretty good indicator, and they are clear. So, and they're not very expensive. So worst case, you got a few bucks, and it's not going to ruin the pen, but it's going to maybe taint the color just a little bit. But most of the time, most people I know that want an eyedropper pen, they like to use preppies, especially if it's a pen like Noodler's Bay Stay Blue or something that's like really known for being kind of stainy. Just dedicate a pen to it, and the Preppy is a good pen to do that with because it's really inexpensive and it holds a ton of ink. So you got that. And then another thing I was thinking, like maybe you could try it with a glass pen or like any plastic pen that you might have, like a plastic dip pen or something. You could try like dipping it in there and then just like letting it dry. Let it dry on the pen and see what it does. I don't know. That might work. I've never tried that, but maybe that's a thing. I don't know. I'm curious if it would make sense in a certain way for us to be able to test that. I don't know a good reliable way to test out how much something doesn't stain something. But anyway, so give me food for thought. So hopefully that helps out at all. And we'll just kind of roll right into our pen spotlight here for the Diamine Forever inks. Alrighty, folks, let's do the pen spotlight. This is on the Diamine Forever Inks. These are about a 15, 16 inks? I don't remember the exact number, but Adrienne was so kind enough to write them all out and do this up so nicely. She originally wrote this out because she was like, oh, you can test the waterproofness on it. I was like, this looks so good. I don't want to ruin it by getting a bunch of water all over it. So we will not ruin that unless we have to. But what I have here, thanks to her, I'm giving her full credit. And she was like, don't give me credit. And I was like, I'm giving you credit. So she's got a whole bunch of eyedropper preppies here. And eyedroppered them with each color. Now these are like the old school preppies that, you know, we had laying around. They used to come in like the Noodler's 4.5 ounce bottles. They changed the Charlie pen like a decade ago, but we had all these pens and they're unlabeled. So it was really convenient and nice to be able to show these. So if you're wondering where to get these, you can't. So sorry about that, but it does make it really good for showing the ink. So I'm going to set this aside here somewhere. I may have to zoom out a bit. Okay, so I'll set this aside over here. Well, I have a roti pad, and then I have some Q-tips. I have some water. Really, I wanted to test mostly like the waterproofness of these things. So we've got some reviews that we're doing. We're going to do like more thorough tests, but I thought, why not just go ahead and show you what's going on? So I'm just going to write up a bunch of samples and then just kind of go. And we're going to see on the fly, if you're just writing something, how is it going to hold up? So let's see here, Diamine. Oh, it's nice and smooth. Raven, okay. And then I'm going to do a bunch of that kind of stuff. Okay, that seems to flow pretty nicely. Looks pretty dark, pretty black. Diamine Butterscotch. I'm like really rolling here. I don't know if you can hear, there's like thunder outside. There's a big storm going on right now. So that's fun. Okay, Butterscotch. Next up, Skyline, the blue, my favorite. Ooh, I like that. Now, Adrienne did warn me when she was using this. She said a couple of these colors, like the yellow, maybe the pink, like feels like it like writes a little drier in the pen. Now, the thing I'll say too is like this is drying really quickly on the paper. That was one thing that I noticed when dipping it. Adrienne's commented on that as well. Diamine, ugh, blue indigo. Sorry, this is not going to be the most beautiful writing that you've ever seen in your life. But there we go. Oh, there you go. I got a little bit of a smear. That was my finger. But that's not bad still, right? All right, this is Passion Flower. Maybe what I'll do is I'll skip writing Diamine, because not only is it kind of boring for you to just sit there and watch me do this, because I can't talk and write at the same time. Case in point. But also, my family's waiting for me to bring dinner home, and it is after hours, and I'm now in overtime here, which is happening more and more recently with Q&A. Okay, see a red ochre. Whoops. It's okay. What I'm going to do once I'm done with all these is I'm going to try like smearing across them with a Q-tip to see if they move at all, and then I'm going to dunk it. I've got a container of water over here, and I'm just going to soak it because I thought that would be kind of fun to do. Hot magenta. Let's go. And I just hear like this thunder and rain outside as I'm trying to go quickly. It's so ominous. You probably can't hear it because the noise canceling is pretty decent on this mic, but still, if you're like, why is Brian so nervous and jumpy? And why does his handwriting look so chicken scratchy? It's because I'm living in a horror movie beginning here. Right, Tiger Lily. I'm pretty sure I'm the only one here in the office still too, which is also like, the call's coming from inside the house. Okay. Coral Blaze. Now these all look pretty similar to each other. It's a little easier to see the differences in person, I think. Okay, Coral Blaze definitely feels a little drier to me. It feels like it's just not gushing out of the pen quite as much. So that's the thing. Honey Pot, next one. Am I going to fit all these on one page? I think I am. I wasn't intending on that. Honey Pot. There we go. I'm so proud of myself because I hear a torrential downpour outside, and I did remember to bring my umbrella inside. So good. Normally, it's like weather's fine in the morning, and I'm like, I don't need my umbrella. And then it's pouring by the time I go out to my car, and I'm like, well, I have an umbrella in the car. And then if I do remember to bring it, it's like beautiful and sunny out, and I'm like, well, I just got to carry this umbrella. All right, Solar Yellow. You can't see that at all. But it's there. Hyper Green. This feels a little drier too. I don't know if it's just the pen that it's in, maybe. Feels a little drier. The yellow I couldn't really tell. I can't even see it on the page, so can't tell if it's writing dry. Amazonia. Oops, missed the start of the A there. Amazonia. Good Lord, it is raining so hard out there right now. It is wild. I'm gonna have to go like try and get some footage of this rain out there so y'all can hear why I keep talking about it. Let me go do that. Yeah, there you go. It's a lot. There's a lot of rain. Yeah, there's like no cars in the parking lot. See, proof, receipts. And we're back. All right. It also helped to just give like a minute for this to maybe dry, but I've just sat down and I've written with all these. So now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take my handy dandy cotton swab of Q-Tip brand. No sponsorship here. And I'm just going to drag it across. So Diamine Raven. Boom. Like a tiny little bit came on the Q-tip, but I mean, that ink looks perfectly fine. I'll give a fresh one. Butterscotch. Butterscotch, pretty good. Maybe a teeny bit of movement there. This is on Rhodia paper, so it's like pretty ink resistant. Not the most ink resistant paper. This is like the standard paper that I like to do ink reviews and stuff on. Okay, Skyline's got a teensy bit more movement, but overall still pretty darn good. So I'm using the other end of the swab. This is on Blue Indigo. A little bit more. You know, blue inks can generally be tougher, especially lighter blues. Can be a little tougher. I will say too, like dripping ink on here versus rubbing it with a swab. Usually rubbing across it is a little harsher of a test for testing for water resistance, because you not only have the water at work, but you have a mechanical like swiping, moving across the ink that's kind of pulling that up. Passion Flower did great. Look at that. Smoky Mauve. Good. Red Ochre. Let's see how you hold up. Red Ochre is pretty decent. Hot Magenta. I'm going to speed it up here a little bit because this is boring. I'm getting bored myself, hearing myself talk. Cherry Red. Pretty good. That's pretty good for red. Tiger Lily Orange. Pretty good. Coral Blaze. Yo, this is not bad. Honey Pot. And this has not had a ton of time to dry either. I would like to see, I don't want to ruin Adrian's thing, but over time I imagine it would only be more water resistant as it has more time to like actually soak all into the paper. Green had a teeny bit, but honestly these are all very respectable. Teensy bit on Amazonia. So it seems like Skyline is the only one that's like had anything meaningful. The Indigo, a lot of that was what I'd smeared when it was still wet. So Blue Indigo is maybe a tiny bit. Skyline, maybe a little bit of surf, I don't know, Amazonia, but dang, these are really good. So this is what I expected might happen. So I wanted to really go nuts and test it out, which is why I got my bin here. And I just wanted to take this whole thing and soak it in water and just see what that does. This is not practical at all because you're never going to end up doing this most likely. But if you're caught in a torrential downpour, like what's going on outside right now, maybe you will need it. So let's see here. Just kind of let that soak in a little bit. Here we go. Get it nice and drenched. Completely soak it under there. Now this obviously would pretty well ruin the paper. There we go. See, what I didn't do is a baseline test for y'all to see what it's like with a conventional ink. So while I'm letting that just kind of sit there for a minute, that is not moving at all. That's crazy. What do I have here? I believe I have Emerald of Chivor in here. So this is going to be a nightmare. This is not a water-resistant ink, Emerald of Chivor. So does not dry as quickly. But let's go ahead and do a little swab. Need to get more Q-tips here. Went through them all. Let's test Emerald of Chivor, shall we? Yeah. Actually, I did a little better than I would have thought. A little bit better. But just for ha-has, let's move this on down for a sec. Let's put Emerald of Chivor in here and see how that fares. Oh, that is not pretty, my friends. That is not pretty. Now, this is expected, right? This is how most fountain pen ink is going to be. It is water-based. And so, therefore, it is not going to be very water-resistant unless it has specific properties that make it water-resistant. Dang, I got to say, I'm impressed. This has held up basically completely. Like, that looks the same as when I put it in there. Daggone. As opposed to my Emerald of Chivor, which is still somewhat readable. Yeah, it's somewhat respectable, but I don't know. Vibrant colors seems to flow pretty decent out of the pens. Not hard to clean. Very ink resistant, very water resistant. Diamine Forever, y'all are killing it. I'm impressed. So that's the Spotlight. You can go check those out. They're available for $20. 50 ml bottle. It's a very reasonable price. They're not like super premium either. I mean, it's on the slightly more expensive end, but not bad. So if you need any ink resistance, definitely give those a look. They're nano pigmented, as they're called. So permanent, waterproof, light resistant. That seems to hold up pretty well. Maybe I'll just leave it there overnight and see what happens. The paper will be like disintegrated. But anyway, that's it for that. Let's talk Brian's adventures, and then I'm gonna get the heck out of here. Go weather the storm. All right, so to follow up, this is the following morning. It's been about 16 hours or so since I did these. It's held up really well. It's been soaking in water overnight. Emerald of Chivor, not so much there, but all the rest of it's still perfectly readable. So yeah, I would say this is pretty water resistant. All right, now that I've made a mess all over my desk here. Could have been worse. Could have been worse. This is fun though. I like doing this. All right, my adventures, let's see here. I don't know, I haven't been up to anything too crazy recently. I did have my 41st birthday last week, so that's fine. Rachel did a bunch for our 40th last year, so 41st is kind of like, yeah, well, I'm now into my 40s now. Not well into, but it's like now I'm not just 40, I'm in my 40s. Anyway, it's fine. I'm actually feeling great. I do not mind aging at all. I think it's great. I like having more experience, more wisdom, hopefully. So that's cool. So I did that. Didn't do anything too crazy, you know, had dinner with my parents because they're local here. You know, had some fun time with the kids, watched some more Dropout. They've been loving Actually, and Make Some Noise in those shows. So a little bit of language in them, but honestly, once my kids went to middle school, and I started having conversations. I was like, all right, kids, y'all are going to be hearing all kinds of stuff. So tell me what curse words you're hearing and what you want to know, and I'll tell you what they mean because you're going to operate in the real world. I'm like, you shouldn't use these things, but you're going to hear it. And so let's talk about it. But at this point, they're like, we'll see a show and there's like a word that comes out and we're like, oh, and they're like, we hear that like every lunch period so many times. And I'm like, that's right. You go to a school with kids. So I don't sweat it too much. Anyway, but there is some language in there. So be aware of that if you're watching it with your kids or if you just don't like the language yourself. But anyway, they love it because they love nerd stuff and it's really fun. Let's see here. What have we been doing? I've been playing drums. Had another drum lesson this weekend and getting the hang of it, doing lots of paradiddles and rudiments and stuff like that. It's a good time. It's really coming more naturally. My practice is paying off. I'm really getting the hang of it. I'll have to show you guys what I'm doing sometime once I feel like I'm competent. And then, yeah, let's see here. I've been doing some stuff around the house, landscaping, like it's full on, rain and pollen, the whole thing. So you combine rain, pollen, and sun, and you're going to get things that grow. Admittedly, we had this whole like landscaped kind of front area in our house that it had weeds growing at the end of last season. I never got around to pulling them. They just kind of died over the winter. And I still didn't pull them. And now they're kind of still there. Now new stuff is growing. And I'm just like, oh, crap. I really need to address this. So I started pulling the weeds. And then I was looking over there and I was like, ooh, I don't like the look of that plant over there. Let me take a picture of that and look it up. Thank you, AI. And it turns out it's poison oak. So I got huge poison oak vines growing in the front of my house, which I'm not keen on because I'm very allergic. And now I got to figure out what the heck I'm going to do. I've got some like spray that I can kind of spray down and hopefully kill it. But then I've got to like rip that crap out of there because it's not something I want to run across. So I don't know. We'll figure that out. If I come in here one day and I'm like wearing long sleeves and sweating, you'll be like, oh, he probably has poison oak on his arms. That's why he doesn't want to show them, because I'm very reactive and it's pretty bad. Anyway, so that's fun. And then, you have these activities that you want to do sometimes. And I have a lot of things around the house and I'm like, I just want to do all this stuff, but I just don't have the energy, or I have other things I want to do. But one of the things is I wanted to clean up the garage just a little bit. I did some of that. And I have one thing that I swear by that I love is any time I have like a garage or a shed space or something like that, I love electrical cord reels. Big fan of them, use them a ton. Rather than having like drape extension cords and all that, I get a cord reel. So I had one that I moved from our old house, actually. It was a 25-foot cord reel. It was super old. And I had that in our garage. And I was like, most of the time, if I need to vacuum out my car, which lives outside, I can't reach it with that thing. So I have to get another extension cord and all that. I'm like, why am I doing this? I need to just get a longer cord reel. So I did. I got a new one. I'm going to move the other one in my shed. So I finally installed, I've had it for a week or two, but I finally installed my new 50-foot cord reel in my garage, and life is good. So look into cord reels if you haven't, because it can be a game changer, especially if you vacuum out your own cars. And then let's see here. What else have I got? That's pretty much it. I vacuumed Rachel's car randomly. Our cars are disgusting because we have kids and we have lives. So they need to be vacuumed out regularly, and the pollen too. So I just, it's kind of spontaneously went out there and spent 45 minutes and just cleaned up her car at like 10 o'clock at night last night. And didn't tell her. And then she went and was surprised. And she was like, oh, this is she's like, you can call this my Mother's Day gift. And I was like, I don't know that I can actually do that, but thank you. She's so low maintenance. She's the best. But anyway, it was just fun to do. Cleaning out the cars is one of the things I really like, having a clean car. I don't mind doing it, but it's just, I like it to be done better than I like doing it. So it's like, and it's also very inconvenient to me to go bring it somewhere. So I just end up not doing it very often. I don't know. It's one of those things. It's like, I really wish I liked cleaning it more, because then that would really suit naturally, because it needs to be done a lot. Anyway, this is nonsense. Let's go ahead and wrap it up. And then I've got a fun fact for you about camels. So hang tight. Well, thank you for watching, sticking in there. A little bit shorter Q&A this week. I don't know. Trying it out for a change. Want to thank you for watching. Leave me some feedback. Ask me some more questions. This is fun. I kind of like playing with stuff. So I don't know, maybe we'll do more of this. But anyway, I'm going to keep this going. So ask me more questions and I'll be back for Q&A next week. Check out gouletpens.com for fountain pen ink, paper needs. And yeah, my fun fact is about camels. So I was listening to Radiolab, which is a podcast that I listened to. And they had an episode in there, and one of the things out there was about the camels. And I was like, this is some weird, interesting facts about camels. So I just Googled a little bit, and I was like, there's so many interesting things about camels. But I don't want to share all of it. But, you know, the whole notion of the podcast was basically like, we think of, you know, what do you think of a camel? You think of like desert, right? You think of, you know, whether the Middle East or Australia or like, you know, Gobi Desert or something like that. Sure. Because they're like really well suited for that environment, right? Well, it's true that they are, but camels, turns out, actually originated. Wow, I like that word. Originated from North America, in fact. So this dates back 40 to 50 million years ago, which seems insane, but I looked it up and it was like, no, okay, it really is that long. There were about 20 different types of species of camel. Of course, there's like, you know, they kind of evolved and iterated, whatever. But they were ranging in size from camels as small as a rabbit, like tiny little camels. Those are some of the earlier ones, you know, up to the height of, they had this like, you know, I think they call them like megafauna, megafauna or something like that, like the saber-toothed tiger and the woolly mammoth and all that era. They had these like mega camels that were basically like the height of a school bus. It's like, that's terrifying. That would be huge. You know, modern camels are about 6 feet tall, but yeah, it was like almost twice that high. And it's like, good night. That's terrifying. So yeah, but apparently they were kind of going around doing their camel thing. And they only migrated out of North America over to Asia like 5 million years ago or so. And yeah, so very interesting. And then of course humans domesticated them and now there's no wild ones left. They only are domesticated, but you know, whatever. But they are fascinating animals. They got some really interesting things going on in terms of how they store their fats and how they go so long without needing water, especially in the desert. It's pretty rad. So recommend you go check out camels. I don't know, why not? Anyway, thank you for watching and I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you on 310. Right on.